And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Scarlet Fu, taking you through to that closing bell with a global simulcast. It starts now. Tim Stenovec in the radio booth, Emily Graffeo by his side in for Carol Massar today. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. The second day of declines for the broader market, really a fourth day for the S&P to be clear, 2 days down for the Nasdaq. But the losses on the day, Tim Stenovec, not as severe as where they were just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, it is technically 2 days in a row down, but on Monday, Romaine, it closed only up 1/100% after falling half a percentage point last Friday, and then about 1/10% last Thursday.
You're one of those truthers.
I mean, if you look at the trend line,
we have a 19.99% drawdown. That's not necessarily fair.
Yeah, you don't round that up, right?
Sure.
But you do look at the trend line, and it's certainly been going in one direction for the last 5 trading days.
And we're definitely seeing that the more
except that one day,
the more speculative areas of the market here getting hit the hardest. The Dow is it's still in the red, set to end the day in the red, but at least it fared the best out of all the major indexes.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, yesterday we talked about how the S&P 500, actually the number of gainers and decliners were roughly equal. Today you have more gainers than decliners in the S&P 500, 257 to 246, yet the S&P down 0.3%.
Similar story for the Dow with about 19 names higher on the day. Your Cats, your McDonald's and Coca-Colas. And of course, we've been spending a lot of time today talking about the health of the consumer with a lot of those retail earnings. We're going to get Coty earnings after the bell. Of course, the cosmetics retailer, which comes on the heels of a somewhat dour report earlier this morning from Estee Lauder. Let's walk you through these numbers here because it has been an interesting day to say the least. It takes a while for these numbers to settle, but we're just going to call it right now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is going to finish the day unchanged, right around that 44,938 level here, despite actually being significantly lower earlier in the session. The S&P 500, which at one point in the day had dropped all the way down to 63.43 and change, closes down at around 63.95 and change, down 16 points or 0.25%. The Nasdaq Composite down 0.7%, and the Russell 2000 down 0.3%. Though I should point out, Tim, the Dow Transports had an awful day, of course, after leading the charge over the last few weeks, down almost 2%.
Well, as far as stocks, the mix of stocks that moved higher and lower, Scarlett giving you a preview, 261 to the upside at the close, 238 to the downside in the S&P 500. So even though, Scarlett, as the S&P 500 fell, more stocks in the index did move higher.
And that shows up in the IMAP as well. 7 out of 4 out of the 11 sectors finished in the green, 4 finishing down. But the ones that did finish down, consumer discretionary, tech and communication services, they house the Mag 7 names, and they are, of course, the bigger sectors, more heavily weighted sectors. Energy was the best performer, gaining 0.8%, moving higher along with oil prices. All right,
taking a look at the stocks that performed the best in the S&P 500 and in the U.S. today. Well, at the top of the S&P 500, analog devices to the upside of 6.3%, best performer in a percentage basis in the S&P 500. The company did report results earlier today. Adjusted earnings per share, the forecast for the fourth quarter came in above estimates. The guidance beat the average analyst estimate. The CEO and chair, Vincent Roche, said that, quote, while tariffs and trade fluctuations are creating market uncertainty, demand for analog devices products remains robust. And Hertz also in the green today. Shares climbing after a report that the company will start selling used cars on Amazon Autos, up close to 6% on the day today. This is Amazon Autos' first fleet dealer. Here are some details. Customers can browse Hertz car sales listing on Amazon Autos and finish their purchase online and then pick up their car at Hertz car sales locations. The rollout not all over the U.S. It'll start at Dallas, Houston, L.A., and Seattle. The company plans to expand to Hertz car sales 45 locations nationwide. A reminder that some of these rental car companies are the largest sellers of used cars out there. And Guess shares absolutely surging today. The company going private in a $1.4 billion deal with Authentic Brands Group. It's in partnership with the co-founders Maurice and Paul Marciano and CEO Carlos Alberini. Shares up more than 26% today. Authentic Brands is going to acquire a majority stake in Guess's intellectual property, while Guess management will continue to run the business and own the operating company. Once again, Guess shares up more than 26%.
All right, and for the decliners, Target was one of those maybe surprising decliners of the day, falling 6%. They had a hotly anticipated earnings report that actually was pretty good. They maintained their guidance, most of the results beating estimates, but the retailer's pick for an internal CEO appointment did seem to offset those better than expected results. So we did see that stock falling over 10% on an intraday basis and then closing the day down over 6%. I'm also watching Estee Lauder. This is the third day of declines for the makeup cosmetics company. Closed the day down about 4%. The company said that it has hired external advisors to conduct a review of the brands it owns, La Mer being one of those, in a bid to accelerate a turnaround after years of sales declines. The CEO said
that's like the little facial serums that cost like $1,000.
Yes, it costs a couple $100s for like a little thing of moisturizer.
I was like, you know what, maybe there's something that I'm missing out on. I didn't notice a difference.
They never give out samples, ever.
Yeah, you must have purchased it.
Well, you know what you can do. You know, you go to Bloomingdale's across the street and use their samples there. You know,
okay.
No, that's gross.
Yeah, everyone's sticking their finger in there.
If you want to save money, you got to think outside the box.
Anyway, for Estee Lauder, the CEO said the company is rethinking its portfolio. Now I'm thinking about moisturizer in order to focus on our highest return opportunities over the medium to long term. We'll share updates in due course. That's from Estee Lauder. So check back in on that company. And then finally, James Hardie. This was a really big drop, worst drop since 2001. The building materials maker falling 34%. They reported net sales that missed analyst expectations, and they also warned of weak demand for repairs and new construction in North America. Really a downbeat outlook here on the U.S. housing market.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal, well, not phenomenal in a bad way, report here. But I mean, we paid a lot of attention to that, and that kind of leads us to this idea of macroeconomic conditions and whether the Fed might actually potentially come to the rescue or whether they even need to. We did get the FOMC minutes a little bit earlier today, and maybe it kind of ratified the idea that, well, rates might not actually go anywhere. In fact, the curve, the Treasury curve today, pretty much steady, right around where it's been. You did see just modest movements to the downside here, but this has been a Treasury market that's been in a bit of a holding pattern. Of course, waiting for Jay Powell's speech on Friday and the official FOMC meeting, which concludes on September 17th.
Okay, you guys were talking about the La Mer, what is it?
Moisturizer.
La Mer moisturizer.
A cream.
Okay, it's the luxury, high-end moisturizer.
But it works, so, you know, it deserves the price tag.
What about a $160 lipstick from the makers of Louis Vuitton? There's a story in the Wall Street Journal.
So I love this question.
Yeah.
I have no idea what lipstick is supposed to cost.
I don't either,
sure,
but this one's
that's
scented.
expensive.
How much is a lipstick anyway?
I have no idea.
I'm guessing it's less than $160.
That was a shock to you.
Yeah, not $160.
Okay.
Yeah, how much is
That's
it,
the answer.
Emily? Yeah,
No, I mean, you go to a drugstore, you can get a 10, 15, 20.
Okay, well, the folks over at Louis Vuitton actually
What does it
think
smell
that
like?
Scented. They think that there is a market at the highest end to create essentially the Louis Vuitton trunk of lipstick. At least that's the question that the Wall Street Journal asks.
But the case that the lipstick is in is also beautiful, right? I mean, it's leather and it's monogrammed and, you know, it looks like one of those mini trunks. So I think that's part of the selling point, too.
Oh, no, Scarlett. The mini trunk costs extra. Oh. Do you want to know how much that costs?
No.
$2,900.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But you could get a canvas one and an eyeshadow pouch for $530. Okay.
Okay, Tim. I mean,
this is really turning the lipstick indicator on its head. Like, it's supposed to be a recession indicator because it's an inexpensive luxury.
We should just call it the CVS lipstick indicator because that's the one that's, you know, going to tell you whether consumers are willing to spend. I mean, so Emily, you brought up earlier about how Estee Lauder is hiring advisors to help it perhaps winnow down his brands. How do they position themselves when you've got Louis Vuitton entering the makeup market now? I mean, what is their highest end brand at Estee Lauder? La Mer, but they don't make lipsticks or anything like that, or regular cosmetics, right? I mean, they're a skin cream company.
Yeah, they just have, I think, that moisturizer that smells really good.
But it gets to this idea, too, of like what the brand power. I mean, we've been talking about this all day today. We had Mickey Drexler, of course, famous for helping to sort of build Gap and turn around J. Crew. And this idea of, you know, why would you pay $160 for lipstick? Well, because, you know, it's attached to Louis Vuitton. At the same time, Estee Lauder is dealing with the idea that maybe some people don't see his brand as having that same premium. And that's why when you got their earnings report, they talked a lot about maybe potentially actually scaling back prices or at least offering some sort of discounts. Why are you guys just looking at me right now? Isn't there a flip box or something? I'm confused. It's like I'm talking to myself. There
I'm just getting all the information about the luxury skincare
I'm
routines.
just looking at the brand. I mean, Estee Lauder owns an incredible number of brands, right? And the makeup sales that fell 5% during the quarter were due mainly to declines in MAC, Too Faced, and Bobbi Brown. Aveda also saw sales declines. Speaking of another skincare
I love that.
company.
My prerogative,
No, different
Fender
Bobbi
Romaine?
Brown. Yeah, different one.
Oh.
Yeah. Not Mr. Whitney Houston, the ex-Mr. Whitney Houston.
Oh.
Bobby with an I.
Well, now I'm less interested.
Oh, okay.
Bobby with an I.
Thank you, Scarlett.
Yep.
For the information. Appreciate it. We are
You
going
would
to
know too if you listen to 80s pop music.
Sadly, we're going to have to leave it there.